Hey, badass business owners, welcome back to the show. If you have a small business that is serving your local community, then you have come to the right place. Today, we're going to talk about profit and getting more of it. Let's face it, we all want to earn more money in our business. The problem is we associate the fact that the only way we're going to make more money is to increase our sales. And that is true. You need to sell something to make profit. I'm not going to lie. But there comes a point in time in our business where we are, for the most part, working anywhere from 40, 50, 60, 70 hours. You're already kind of tapped out, but yet you know you need more sales in order to grow that business. Because ultimately you want more profit, right? Well, what happens is we think the only way we're going to grow that profit is for us to take on more business. But this is where you need to kind of pause for a second and you need to see, hold up. There's no way I can take on more sales. It's physically impossible. I'm already working every day of the week. I'm working these long, crazy hours. There has to be a better way. And there is. I actually put together this thing called 8 Steps to 100K in Profit. And in that, one of the things I talk about is the fact that you've got to kind of, there's things you can do, and one of them is to drive more sales, but that's later in the process. There's some things you really need to be doing first in order to increase your profit. And what I wanted to do today is I wanted to kind of step back and walk through some of the things you really should be working on first when you're looking to grow your profits. And the first thing you got to do is you got to find time to be able to work on your business, because here's what happens is we get so caught up in the day-to-day working of the business that we find less and less time to work on the business. And I'm not going to bore you with, you got to work in the business, on the business versus each other and all that other good stuff. Look, do you own a job or do you own a business? I'm going to say the vast majority of you are saying, oh hell, I own a business. This is what this is. Great. I just need you to put that CEO hat on, and I need you to act like you're running a business. And you've got to make sure that you're carving out 2 to 3 hours a week to work on the business. See, instead of you taking on another job or two, which is going to take up 2 to 3 hours, I'd rather you take that time, that 2 to 3 hours that you would have spent on taking on another job and at least working on the business. Okay. So think of it that way. You'd be more than willing to go out and take on more jobs. I'm just saying, take that same hours and let's start working on running a smarter business. And what are we going to do during that time frame? Well, you all know I'm huge on you knowing your business numbers. So you can bet your bottom dollar that a big chunk of your time is going to be spent working on your business numbers and diving into them, because this is where we're going to start finding some of that lost money, those lost profits that you are looking for. Remember, the reason you need to know your business numbers is it's going to tell you about the flow of money through your business, because you got all this money coming in through these sales that you're doing, and profit is what you put in your pocket at the end of the day. Well, what's happening to the money from the time you take it and put it in your hand or in your bank account, and then you finally get to find it jingling around in your pocket, in your wallet? So now you've made the commitment to where you're going to dive into those business numbers, and you're going to look into your P&L, and you're going to find out what those numbers are telling you. First thing, remember our number one calculation: sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals profits. And you all know, because you've been diving into this, that when we look at the training on our profit and loss, it does the same thing, right? It's broken down into those very categories. Sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals the profits. So when you are now working on the business, the very first thing you have to look at is, where's that money going in that middle section, in your cost of goods and in your expenses. So I want you to really take those 2 to 3 hours that you've now committed to working on your business. And first, let's go find some profit that you're already throwing away. The first step when you're trying to increase your profits and you don't have any more hours to work other than working on the business is you're going to do a deep dive into, let's start with those cost of goods. And what are you looking for when you're looking at those cost of goods? Well, you're going to look for money that you're throwing away or that you're wasting. For example, if you know your cost of goods are made up of 2 parts, right? You've got your supplies, and depending upon the type of business you have, you may have the labor to supply the service or to create that product. Those are both going to be under cost of goods. Are you wasting product? Like you have a lot of product that you're throwing away, or you're buying too much, or you're having to discard it, or maybe you're buying it from a vendor that might be higher priced than what you could probably get it for if you found another way of getting it. Maybe there's different suppliers that you can go and get it cheaper from. Maybe you have to buy it in different bulk packaging, or maybe you have to buy it in different quantities, whatever the case may be. But is there a way that makes sense? I mean, obviously we don't want to cost you more, but is there a way that you can ultimately get these products cheaper than what you currently are getting them for today? Now, one word of caution before you start trying to find cheaper products to use. Do not, under any circumstance, lower the quality of what you are delivering to your customers, because more than likely you are pricing, hopefully, for the quality that you bring. So I'm not saying go and change all of a sudden. Maybe you do something and you're going to go from something that, you're going to try to save a couple of bucks and you're going to go to a cheaper, more flimsy, more breakable, not as nice. I don't want you doing that kind of stuff, okay? But for a lot of cases and a lot of people, there are other suppliers that you might be able to get it cheaper, especially because sometimes you start off getting something from somewhere, and because you're very low volume, you don't get any of the volume discounts. So is there a place that gives you volume discounts because now you're using them more often? Just look at the pricing. That's the biggest thing I want you to do. As far as the labor piece of it, that's really going to come down to a couple different things. One, I'm not into cheap labor. I don't want you to have cheap labor. I do want to make sure that you have fair labor and what you are getting out of somebody. So I'm all about paying someone $30, $40 an hour if they're giving you $30, $40 an hour work. So it's more about productivity out of the individual and quality of that work out of them. Now, for most of you, you don't have people, it's yourself. So you're the person that you are capturing the employee wage side. If you're doing it the right way, you're capturing your employee wage side. So you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of not so much yourself, because I'm sure you're probably already busting your butt, but you just want to make sure that it comes down to more of, are there better efficiencies that could allow that job to be done in an hour and a half? And that's really going to come down to a later step, for example, that's in that free ebook where we talk about improving your processes. So some of your cost of goods will be fixed down further when you start diving into the processes that you have. So I don't mean this to sound confusing, because I know it kind of does when it comes to this piece, when it comes to labor. So part of it is getting the most out of the labor hours that you have. But the second part is, does the labor have to take as long as it does? Are there better processes that will help reduce your labor costs or your product costs? But those might be tied more to processes. So it's not so much that you need to buy it better, but you need to create the efficiencies to be able to get better product costs. So hopefully that clears that up just a tad. Now, your next category that you're going to dive into is going to be your expenses, and this is the money that you spend. And by the way, this is an area that a lot of people can find anywhere from $50 to $250 right off the bat. Dive into those expenses. Where are you spending money in your business today? Odds are there's probably one or two things in there that you no longer use. You set them to auto pay. They've been coming out all along. Could be a magazine, a subscription that you went to. It could be that you joined a membership that you no longer use. It could be something that a rental unit that there's really, maybe you have a storage that you really have nothing in it, and you could probably put the stuff in your garage, but you thought you were going to need it. Whatever the case may be, look at those expenses that are going out every single month. Odds are you can get some profit back, some quick wins, if you will, just by diving into that piece of your expenses. You could renegotiate your insurance. You can look at different costs that you have that are on a regular basis, that sometimes if we go back and we relook at it, we were new as a business when we negotiated some of those things, and later we can find out that we can actually lower them now that we've been in business for a while. In most cases, just sitting down with one of your local fellow business owners who run any of those establishments can help you out with that. Same thing with tax services and stuff like that. Once you've gone through and you have really looked at your cost of goods and you've looked at your expenses, we want to go back and touch on that processes piece before we start going crazy with sales. We want to go back and we want to look at those processes pieces, because it's the processes sometimes that cost us a lot of time and energy. If you think about the fact that you're working these 40, 50, 60, 70 hours, the only way that you're going to be able to take on more business is to become more efficient, because you can't stretch the day any longer. You can't really work any more hours. So you have to figure out, how am I going to be able to get more jobs done? How can I be more efficient? So kind of like what we were talking about earlier, what's going to help you get some of those jobs done much quicker than what it is that you're getting them done today? Now, processes, I'm not going to talk about both sides of it. There's two different things that you're getting out of process. One is, can you do things more efficiency, more quickly? But the second part is processes that are broken that are costing you sales. Because sometimes, for example, we might have a broken process on our communication or how people get a hold of us, and are things broken with the communication piece of it? That's a different one because that's going to lead to more sales. So that's a process that we look at from that angle. Right now, I just want you to look at processes that are hurting you from a cost standpoint, where you can try to save more money and you can make some immediate money to your bottom line. These are the kinds of processes right now that you can start thinking about how are they going to make you more efficient. Now, one thing I do want to take a step back on, and I want to go back to your business numbers, pricing. One of the key things that you can do when you are in the early stages of trying to figure out how you can make more money without necessarily working more hours is to really do a deep dive into your pricing. I believe we talked about it last week and maybe possibly the week before. I know I've done a couple of videos on. You really need to make sure that you are looking at your pricing and that you are maximizing that first as well, because a lot of your profits are lost because you're underpricing, you're underbidding, you did that race to the bottom, or you failed to look at your pricing from the time you started doing it. Your quality's gone up. You've built a name for yourself, a brand for yourself. Now, this doesn't mean I want you to go raise your prices across the board, but I do want you to look at each of your prices, because each of your pricing, you're going to look at the fact of not only what are you priced at and is it the right price for the value that you deliver. Look at the cost of that pricing and the expenses. And are you calculating out the price the right way in the first place? You might be finding that you're way underbidding on stuff, not properly accounting for your cost of goods and your expenses. Remember, sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals profits. Well, that starts with pricing, because if you don't calculate all that into your pricing, then you're always going to be hurting your profit line because you never accounted for all the things that the sale has to account for. And every single sale has to account for both cost of goods and expenses and profit that you plan to make. All right, so I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you here, and my main thing is how do we increase your profits right away? What are some things that you can be doing without necessarily having to take on more sales? And that's going to come down to diving into your cost of goods, diving into your expenses, both of those, looking for money, looking for where you're throwing away money, paying too much. You can lower those costs. We want you diving into your profit and loss so you can look for some of that stuff, money that's being spent that doesn't need to, but also looking at your pricing because you know your business numbers and making sure that you are priced correctly, and then looking for some of those processes that are tied to all of those tasks, to all of those cost of goods, to those expenses, more efficiency with your business when it comes to that piece. Though, if you work on those cluster of items, they're going to help your profits go up without you having to take on more sales. So sometimes sales isn't the answer. You don't have a sales problem. You have a profit problem. And what I'm really trying to convey, I guess for some reason, I don't know if it's coming out the right way. So hopefully it is, and hopefully you can grab at least one nugget out of all of this. The main thing that I'm trying to convey is the fact that look inward and how you run your business and what you're spending your money on before you go looking to drive more sales. In the back half of the 8 steps is where you really focus on growing your sales, but you can't grow your sales until you've got taken care of your house first and made sure it was all right. Now, you probably have noticed I've been mentioning this 8 steps. Some of you guys know about it. I've talked about it in the past. I don't really talk about it enough. I really need to start. There is a free ebook that I have called 8 Steps to $100,000 in Profits. I actually just went through and rearranged the steps a little bit because I realized I never really focused on knowing your business numbers in there as well as I should have. I kind of weaved it through, and really it is a step all on its own. So I went and I redid the ebook, 8 Steps to 100K in Profit, and it's free. By the way, it's nothing you pay for. It's free. I'll put it in the show notes, or you can just go to 8 Steps to 100K Profit.com. That'll take you to the website where you can pick it up as well. But once again, it'll be in the show notes right there. It's a free ebook. It's going to walk you through, and I'm actually decided that I'm going to do a course that I think will do a deeper dive into it to help people get to where they want to get when it comes to their profits as well. So I'm excited about that. Just started penciling that out a little bit so that I can start working on that for you as well. At the end of the day, the main thing here is let's get your profits up. Let's look inward. Let's look before we go trying to chase sales. Let's look at cleaning up. Once again, dive into your cost of goods, dive into your expenses. Take what you know about your business numbers, sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals profits. Dive into your pricing, look at all of that, look at the processes that have to deal with those items, and are they as clean and efficient as they need to be? Later, we'll jump over to the sales side, and maybe we'll talk about that next week. But for now, the main thing is I want you just really doing an internal audit of yourself in those early stages. And if you want some help with that and a little bit more guidance, then just go head on over to 8steps200kprofit.com and grab that free ebook. I'm going to continue to talk about this and make some videos and do some different things to try to help out, because as we head into the back half of the year, you're able to really get a clear check as to where you are year to date. And let's make as much money as we can in the back half of the year and really set yourself up for fantastic profits next year as well. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. And remember, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at Tammy@localsmallbusinesscoach.com, Tammy@localsmallbusinesscoach.com. Also in the show notes, I'll be glad to answer your questions. Now with that, get out of here and go kick some ass. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Hey, badass business owner, before you go, as you know, I'm a huge believer in you knowing your business numbers. After all, it isn't about how much you sell. It's about what you keep. And the best way to grow your profits is to start diving in and understanding those business numbers. To help you on this journey, I have created the Know Your Business Numbers course. We will walk through how to read your profit and loss statement. You'll learn the key calculations that'll help ensure that you're making a healthy profit on all of your products or services, plus a ton of other good stuff that'll help you learn how to use those business numbers to create even more sales and profits. Just check out the link below in the show notes or visit knowyourbusinessnumberscourse.com. So if you're ready to increase those profits, it's time you start diving into your business numbers.